The book of Sirach, chapter 39, verse 26. The principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour of the wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing. Okay, first and foremost, I'd like to give infinite honors and prayers to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Shemar Kahak double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and salutation to the items that's pushing the truth and sincerity. Lord willing, this video will be edifying first and foremost to the whole free elect, then to those that cleave to the body. And this lesson will be, as you see, I got queued up here, bottled water prices are set to soar. All right. Now, we understand that a principal thing, meaning one of the main things, or the first business of priority, all right, for consumption to actually live is water. All right, you can go days without eating. All right, one man may never know, but we know if you don't intake water at some point, all right, you'll eventually what? Be cut off, man. All right, water supply hydrogen to your body, amongst other things. The medicinal purpose for water is as important. All right, it makes everything operate, man. All right, it's very prominent to living. All right, it's a vital necessity to live. That's why it says the principal things of the whole use of man life are water, and that's first. All right, that's first on the list. And I'm gonna read this article. All right, because of the ongoing conflicts. All right, of this war. All right, it's affecting the things, the essential things that we use to actually survive and live, man. Okay, and part of it is due to, I'll explain. I got another part I looked up. All right, that'll kind of give you an oversight on actually what is causing this bottled water prices to skyrocket. All right, it says the conflict in the Middle East is rippling through the oil industry and into consumer goods, with analysis warning bottled water's prices could rise in the coming months. All right, chiefly speaking about April. All right, but we'll get into that. Okay, it says the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran on February 28, after which Iran imposed restrictions on shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, a key global oil transit route that typically carries about 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas. The disruption has pushed Brent crude oil prices up by more than 50% since the start of March, and analysis warn higher energy costs tend to feed quickly into plastic production, raising the risk that bottled water prices will rise for the U.S. Now, we know water is a resource of the Heavenly Father, all right? It's a resource that the Lord have given man, all right, which is free, okay? But we're actually paying for our water, all right, according to the book of Lamentation 5 and 4. But before I get into it, we're actually paying for the plastic that the water is contained in, all right, which is very harmful to our our digestive system, man. All right, the particles in it, all right, it harms us in possibly every way you could possibly think, man. All right, now it says raising the risk that bottled water prices will rise for the U.S. consumers. Nearly 9 in 10 Americans buy bottled waters, especially since we done had all these different oil spills within the water. Since Katrina here where we live, we pretty much been on bottled waters because we understand that the water has forever chemicals in it. All right, and it also says that that the water, I think 60 to 70% or 80% of the water in New Orleans alone has lead in it. All right. And don't quote me on that. It may be higher, maybe lower, but there was it has lead in the water for sure. All right. And when you test these things with test strips, which is the job that I work with water. All right. And I have test strips, concerning, the level or the pH of the water. all right, and the balance of the water that is all the way off, man. It's damn near non-consumable. You damn near gotta burl it. All right. Even the bottled water, we don't actually see where that comes from. We just go and buy it, all right, from our nearby rouses in different places. But we don't know what kind of water that is, man. All right, let's just be technical. But the whole point of it is that people, Americans, rely on bottled water now because a lot of people done got hip to, putting filters on their water. They understand that, the water is completely contaminated, all right, which the Lord contaminated the waters in Egypt, and I find that ironic because the waters here are contaminated too. And that's how this place is taking on the blows Egypt took. It says, according to the 2024 industry data. All right, now let me get this real quick. And again, I won't be long. It says the impact on packaging. It says higher oil prices mean higher costs for plastic bottles, bottle caps, packaging materials. These materials are made using petrochemicals derived from crude oil. You see how the necessity that oil and gas actually things that are made, all right, and used from, the purposes for them, how important they are. All right. Gas and oil is as important to survival than water. It says oil. All right. But it, obviously, it may be speaking of a different oil, but for the most part, these are principal things that Americans have to operate and survive off, man. Just want to show that because if the prices continue to rise, right, with the oil and not getting a leg thereof, and we have to go to the America have to start using their reserves. What happens is the retail prices start to increase, right? The production costs gonna remain high because now we have to use their own materials, all right, and, different things of that nature, all right. So they got to charge you more, and it says during the summer, which is a high intake of water where people are drinking, it says the demands could make the impact stronger, right? So you're gonna need more water in the summertime, which the production they're gonna have to charge more because they're gonna have more of an output. So this can affect us on every side, and we all know the brothers drink bottled waters, but we just under the thumb of this damn devil, man. All right. It says the United States and Israel. Oh no, I read that. Let's get a little bit more of this. It says a professor, Patrick Penfield, a professor of supply chain practice at Syracuse University, told Newsweek that he would expect to see at least a 5% increase on plastic bottle drinks in general for the month of April. Now, when you look at, they say, oh, it's just 5%. All right. You do 5% of bottled waters we get be about, depending on what you get. I get Ozarka spring water. Brothers get different things. All right. That's about, I think it's about $7, $8 a case. About 35, 30, whatever of them. All right. 5% of that. Let's just look. All right. Just look it up real quick. Okay. Shouldn't be much, right? But when you do that as over millions of people that's in America, then you'll be able to see, all right, 5% of, let's just do $8. All right, $8. Okay. Should be, that's per full. All right. Which is, I guess, is 25 cents, right? A point for a quarter. All right. Now, once you start to add them up, as many as Jake get a month, whatever, those little quarters or whatever, it's just another way to tax us, man. Like invisibly, right? To where like, it's just an extra quarter. All right. But then what begins to happen, the more of the output and the more they got to produce, okay, that quarter going to turn to 50 cents and the 50 cents to $1 and so forth and so on. And then before you know it, man, water going to be sky fucking high. All right. So And this the cause here, man. This is Lamentations 5. Okay. And I'm gonna read 4. Okay, reading NLT, it says we have to pay for water to drink, and even firewood is expensive. So, you know, it says those who pursue us are at our heels. We are exalted, but are given no rest. Are exalted, but given no rest. And Jay can't even get clean water, man. You know, you take a bath here and shit, you be itching, you know. And how much more drinking it? Because when it go on your skin, it goes within your body. So this same water that's running through these defiled pipes, these contaminated waters, all right, leaded waters, at this point, man, we just, you know, our necks are under persecution, man. You know, it says if we continue to see oil prices climb to 125 to 150 a barrel, it could double to 10% in May. See? And if oil reaches 200 a barrel, where we practically at damn near, we will see a price increase of 25 to 30%. And just like that, in a month or two, all right, we just saw 5% go to 30%. All right, then now we're starting to look at a higher income along with gas prices already sky high. Now the water is sky high. The food is sky high. You start to get the picture? All right, you start to get enclosed in on every side, man. I'll read a little bit more here. Well, that was the point. All right. So, let me see. Get a little more. It says drinking water prices in India have already risen about 11%, which is neither here nor there. All right. According to the driven industry figures, driven in part by higher energy costs following a disruption. Plastic used in bottled water packaging are closely tied to energy markets, all right, which they're saying there's an energy lockdown, there's an energy crisis, all right. All these things is tied in, man, all right, to where they're going to tax you till we can't afford it. You know, a lot of people saying, well, listen, I'm just working to fill up my gas tank now. You know, that ain't counting food, that ain't counting rent, ain't counting clothing, all right, and it's essential things we need to keep living. Are closely tied to energy markets. Ethylene, a key component of plastic resins, is derived from ethane, which comes from natural gas. All right. Kenneth Gillingham, and a professor of economics at Yale University, told Newsweek. All right. As a result, packaging costs have surged. The price of packaged drinking water has risen to 20 rupees per liter after the cost of plastic packaging materials jumped by more than 70% in recent weeks. All right, we got to get up out of here. It is not our rest, man. All right, and that's going into India's largest bottled water company. All right, under Reuters. But the most part, all right, I'll read this part. The U.S. produces most of its own ethane, according to data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. So may not see prices hike as quickly or as dramatically. That's a goddamn lie. He said there might be a slight upward pressure on bottled water prices in the U.S., but not a substantial one such as India, Gillian said. And you can't believe these goddamn devils. All right? Okay? So that's pretty much the point. You know, our necks is under persecution, and we labor and we have no rest here, man. So I don't want to rot the Zada Lord judge this place and get us up out of here, you know, soon. Okay? So with that, Lord willing, this video was edifying. Till next time I see you.